I want to touch on a few myths here before I get to some of the solutions. This is something that you've heard a lot, is the jobs that Americans won't do. The fact is there are no jobs that Americans won't do. There are no jobs that people won't do. There's only wages that people will not accept. Best example of this is Mexicans who refuse $10 a day in Mexico when they know they can work here for $10 an hour. So, it's not the jobs that Americans won't do, it's the wages that are being paid. Another myth is that some Republicans lost the elections in 2006 because of their immigration position. And I've heard these examples before. Judith also used them. They were used when the election was over back in November. This is all false. If you look at Hostetler in Indiana, he was never really strong in immigration enforcement. His opponent, the Democrat that won, was equal to him in terms of calling for enforcement. J.D. Hayworth in Arizona, I know J.D., I count him as a friend. He opposed us on Proposition 200 in Arizona in 2004. He only came to immigration enforcement after the Minutemen were deployed in April of 2005. So J.D. was a late comer to immigration enforcement. I believe he's sincere. He's written a book. I heard from Dick Morris a couple weeks ago that he's going to run for the Senate for John McCain's seat. But J.D. is a late comer to immigration reform. The fact is that it's a mixed bag. I would think the fairest thing to say about the November election is that immigration didn't lift some of the Republicans that were for it. Their immigration enforcement stand didn't lift them over the other things that were going on in the country, including the displeasure with President Bush and the war in Iraq and all the other things. The $20 head of lettuce. People ask me all the time, do you want to spend $20 for a head of lettuce? And the first thing I say to them is, do I look like I eat lettuce? Anyway, thank you. I got to use it for something. Anyway, labor is typically less than 10% of the cost of production of bringing food to marketplace. Most of the cost is taken up in transportation costs, advertising costs, packaging, even where the product is set in Safeway, whether it's at the end of the aisle or it's in the middle of the aisle, costs it more. If we paid 10% of our food costs was actual labor costs, would it be so bad to give these workers a 50% raise? I mean, if we raise them from 10 to 15% of food cost, what would that actually impact our food bill? It wouldn't be that much of an increase. So all these, there is fear mongering going on, the fear that prices are going to go up. Look, the cost of production has nothing to do with the price in the marketplace. What sets the price in the marketplace? Anybody? The marketplace, supply and demand, exactly right. The people that make the argument that because businesses get cheap labor, we get cheaper products, I have to ask them, who do they think are running these corporations? Nuns that have taken a vow of poverty? They're being run by capitalists. And I'm a capitalist and I support capitalism. That means I also recognize that the capitalist job is to maximize their profit. They're not passing through anything to us. I spent extensive time in the Midwest in the meatpacking industry. Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and many of the meatpacking plants there, the wages in meatpacking have gone from what was typically $15 an hour 15 to 20 years ago to $8 to $9 an hour today. And I haven't noticed the price of meat going down in that period of time. Same with hotels and motels and restaurants. Have we seen these costs of hotels and the prices of meals going down? We have not. What we've seen is businesses are making more profits with cheaper labor, and that is their job. So, let's not be, let's not be fooling ourselves. One about local enforcement, which is one of my solutions, is that if we have local enforcement, you know what, I'm going to get to that when I get to my solutions. Okay, here's my solutions for dealing with the situation. It's easy to say that the system is broken, but that actually says nothing. I spent a lot of time in the trenches. Somebody once likened me to be like a James Bond character. I mean, one day I'll be eating an Egg McMuffin in Douglas, Arizona, on the border, and 2 days later I'm eating Eggs Benedict at the Hotel Sofitel in Washington, D.C. I've been on the border, I've been with ranchers, I've been out at night, I've been out night vision goggles out on the line, carried a gun in Arizona. Yes, it's dangerous out in the dark in the desert when there's nobody else around. I've done all that. And I've seen the effect of the non-enforcement that goes on. The first thing that we need to do to solve this problem is to secure the borders, and not the kind of half-baked solutions that we've seen, not the types of deployments that we've seen which are designed to fail, where you set border patrols in a certain place, it's called sitting on X's, and you don't even allow them to get out of their truck. 20 illegal aliens could run by their car, and they can't get out and chase them. They have to radio it into a rover who's driving around, who's then going to try to intercept them. That is deployment that is designed to fail. When you take all your agents out of one sector and you put them in another sector, the smugglers, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar-a-year enterprise. Their intelligence is very good. They know where the agents are. Deployment that is designed to fail is not deployment at all. It is not enforcement. What we need to do is to secure the border. That means putting the military on the border. We need to reduce expectations. When I first went to the border in 1993, I was a host of a local TV show in the Bay Area, and I had, this is the old 3/4-inch video days and black and white viewfinders, and I was down on the border in San Ysidro, and I was taking a lot of video of people that were trying to sneak in, and it wasn't until I got it back into the editing bay that I realized that as I was panning around, I picked up a guy, a Mexican, in the crowd who had a crutch and was going to try to get in. And you have to ask yourself, what is the expectation of a guy with a crutch who thinks he's going to sneak into the country? I've talked to Border Patrol agents that have caught pregnant women in labor while they're coming across the border. What is that woman's expectation? That she's going to make it. Now, we need to reduce expectations, and we need to do that. We need to put the military on the border and send the message around the world that don't spend your money, don't waste your time, and don't risk your life trying to come, because you're not going to make it. We're going to catch you. We're going to stop you from entering. One of the things that we could do is we could train our military on the border. Our helicopter pilots, we have the best special operations helicopter pilots in the world. They're out fighting the war on terror in Afghanistan and in Iraq and in the Horn of Africa, in South Africa, in Colombia, in South America. Rather than have them flying around Fort Hood or flying around Kentucky, let's put them down on the border. They need to learn to fly at night with night vision goggles close to the ground. Let's have them flying up and down the border and doing double duty. The drug smugglers aren't going to know if this is a Border Patrol helicopter or an Army helicopter. Stick a forward-looking infrared and a GPS on there, and when they see somebody, have them radio it in. We're paying to train them anyway. Let's pay them to help defend the border at the same time they're being trained. So, secure the border would be number one. Now, it can be done. I have been there when it has been done. In early 2000, when Pat Buchanan was running for president, I was in Douglas, Arizona, and I organized a press conference for Pat in Douglas at the site of the drug tunnel trailer. The Border Patrol knew he was coming. Everybody knew he was coming because we did a good job of getting the word out. The week before Pat Buchanan arrived, it looked like the Normandy invasion down there. There were helicopters at night. They set the single-day arrest record for the Border Patrol. Was the day before he arrived. There were jail buses moving, prisoner buses moving up and down the highway. They aggressively enforced that border, and they convinced the Mexican government to do it too. Why? Because the day Pat came, there were 17 news agencies there and 17 beta cams, and they didn't want to have one illegal alien deframe what Pat Buchanan's message was, is that we need to secure the border. And when we went on our border tour, I was in the second truck. Pat was in the first truck. I was in the CNN truck, sticking my head out the window, and I could see Grupo Beta, the Mexican Border Patrol, about 100 yards ahead of our column as we moved down the border road. They were on the other side of the border, moving down to make sure they didn't get one video footage of an illegal alien sneaking across while Pat Buchanan was there. They didn't want to emphasize the point that he was saying. I have seen the enforcement work. We just haven't worked it enough. As they say in motivational training, the best system in the world won't work if you won't. Well, law enforcement won't work if we don't work the law enforcement. So first, let's secure the border.